This episode may contain content of a graphic nature, including descriptions of physical and sexual violence against adults, children, and animals. Listener discretion is advised. Hi everyone, I'm Talia.
And I'm Tanya.
And together we are Crimes and Consequences, a true crime podcast. Hello, Tanya.
Hi, Talia.
How are you today?
I am great. It is Friday.
It is Friday, and you got your hair done.
I did, and it looks gorgeous.
It looks great. I love getting my hair done. It makes me happy. I got a good one for today. Well, it's good in a bad way.
Oh, of course it is. That's how all these stories are.
Which is what you want, so I'm giving it to you. The story I have today, Tanya, I got the information for this story by going to Macomb County Clerk's office. And a shout out to the Macomb County Clerk's office because they copied 1,000 pages of transcripts for me for this case that I'm talking about.
And especially to Nick because he
gave me
the info,
the lead on the case. So shout out to Nick and Macomb County Clerks. You ready? All right, here we go. On August 9th of 1991 at 4:20 a.m., the police were called to the city of Detroit in Michigan because there was a woman naked on the road, bleeding and moaning. The police didn't arrive right away, but the ambulance did, and the ambulance took this woman to the hospital. When she got to the hospital, her injuries were assessed, and I'm going to tell you her injuries. For those that do not like to hear crime scene details, you need to fast forward a couple minutes on this one. Okay, here we go. When she got to the hospital, they discovered that she had a broken jaw. Her head had been split open, but it was a closed head injury. It resembled a watermelon.
Oh.
She had bleeding in all 4 hemispheres of her brain. She had bite marks all over her body, a black eye, bruises all over her body, and...
Okay, I can tell by your face this is going to be bad.
This is so bad. I don't even know how to say this. Her rectum was missing.
Ugh, what?
There was a 4-inch gap that went 12 inches inside of her. And her colon was hanging out 6 inches from the hole there.
Okay, I can't even picture this. And thank God I can't picture this. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awful.
It is really horrific. An injury like that probably came from either a stick or a pole that was 4 inches by a minimum of 12 inches long, crammed into her rectum.
4 inches wide?
Wide.
Okay.
Oh. And the wound was so traumatic that she was bleeding profusely. The wounds to her genitalia had grass all around it.
Grass?
Grass. Her core body temperature was 93 degrees. She was incoherent, mumbling, in extreme pain. The woman was unable to communicate at all for about 20 minutes. Once they got some fluid in her and the shock was wearing off, she was able to give her sister's phone number and state her name. Her name was Maureen. Maureen was 22 years old at the time. She's Caucasian. She got married when she was 15. She got divorced when she was 19. And at the time of the incident, she had a 5-year-old son. Maureen was in an on-again, off-again, volatile relationship with a man named Jeffrey Moldawan. They met the summer before, and they were together for about 13 months. They lived together. They broke up maybe 10 times during that 13 months. Jeffrey, known as Jeff, was 21 years old. He'd been arrested on multiple occasions for disorderly conduct and assault and battery, but it was all very minor misdemeanors. He would serve a little bit of time in jail and get released. And by all accounts, this was not a match made in heaven. Jeff actually just got out of jail a couple weeks before this incident for assaulting Maureen's dad with a table leg. As you can guess, Maureen's family wasn't real impressed with him. After Maureen was taken to the hospital and her injuries were assessed and she was stabilized, the hospital called her sister Colleen, who was only 17. Colleen has a boyfriend at the time too, and he happens to be Maureen's ex-husband.
Stop it.
She is 17.
I was going to say she's 17, right?
Yeah, she's 17. She has a baby, and she is dating her ex-brother-in-law. Why not? After the hospital called, Colleen frantically called her mom to tell her about Maureen, and her mother immediately rushed to the hospital. After a few hours in surgery, Maureen came out, and she was stabilized. The hospital did an exam on Maureen, and they found no signs of injury to her vagina, and they found no semen at all. The police wanted to question Maureen, but they were unable to because she was not able to communicate. She was kind of in and out of consciousness. Plus, Maureen's mouth was wired shut. Blood tests done on Maureen showed her alcohol level was 0.274.
Are you kidding me?
How
is she still alive?
I don't know. On my worst Saturday night, I'm not even close to that.
Oh my God.
0.274. The legal limit is 0.08. That is a shit ton of alcohol. Someone with an alcohol level of 0.274 can be expected to be in what is called a stupor. All mental, physical, and sensory functions are severely impaired. Vomiting and blackouts are common, and had she had a couple more drinks, she would be at the point where death could occur. Maureen was in and out of consciousness for approximately 2 days after her surgery. She had to have a colostomy bag for the rest of her life.
Ooh.
They were never able to put her back together the same way. All of her anal muscles were completely gone. During those 2 days, her mother and her family visited her. They would talk to her, but obviously she couldn't talk back to them. Since the police and detectives weren't able to talk to Maureen, they went to Maureen's family to try to understand what could have possibly taken place. Maureen's sister Colleen was the first person to speak to them, and she informed them that she knew the names of the people that did it to her. According to Colleen, on the night her sister was brutally beaten, Jeff called Colleen's house multiple times. The phone calls consisted of threats to Colleen if she didn't reveal where her sister was. Allegedly, during the last phone call at 1:30, he stated to Colleen, "I know where your sister is, and I'm going to go and kill her." Specifically, he was going to cut her up into pieces. Colleen went on to tell the detectives that about noon on August 9th, she received another phone call from Jeff. And this isn't long after Maureen just got out of surgery. Apparently, Jeff called Colleen up and wanted to know where Maureen was at. According to Colleen, she told Jeff, "She's right here with me." To which Jeff replied, quote, "No, she's not. She's at the morgue. Because my friends and me ran into her last night." Colleen further states that she asks Jeff, "Who are your friends?" And Jeff just openly and willingly tells her, Mike, Jim, and a guy named Tracy. When Colleen was asked why she would go and tell Jeff that Maureen was there with her, Colleen stated that she wanted Jeff to come over to her house so she could kill him with her gun. Anyway, Colleen told the police this tip. Again, she said there were 4 people that did this. Jeff, Mike, Jim, and a guy named Tracy. Okay?
Okay.
They got arrested. The 4 of them, based on this tip. When Maureen was finally conscious, obviously the detectives and the police wanted to interview her and find out what she remembers about the horrible evening. Now, Maureen wasn't actually able to talk. In order to give her version of events, they had to get creative. And the detective had some sort of board, and she would point to the letters on the board and maybe different writings on the board, and that's how she answered the questions. It was a little bit unclear how she answered these questions with her mouth wired shut. But I know she didn't write them down, and I know she didn't speak them. Maureen told the police that she recognized her perpetrators and could give their names. They are all people that she knew and had met before. Jeff, Jeff's friend Mike, Jeff's friend Jim, who's Mike's brother, and a guy named Tracy, who's also Jeff's friend. These names obviously match with the names Colleen gave the police. All the men get arrested, but they had to release the guy named Tracy because he had an airtight alibi. He wasn't even in the state. The lead detective in this case was Detective Ingalls. And on 3 separate occasions, 3 different individuals came to him with alibis for Jeff. They all came to him stating they had been with Jeff during the incident. A guy named Ken said he was with Jeff. A woman named Jackie said she was with Jeff during the incident. And a 15-year-old boy named Eddie said he was with Jeff when the incident allegedly took place. All of them were told by Detective Ingalls that he was too busy to speak to them. All of them came back at different times and insisted on speaking to Detective Ingalls. Detective Ingalls told each one of them that if they lied to him, they would do life in prison like Jeff was going to do. But all 3 of them still demanded to be able to tell their story. In the next coming days and weeks, Maureen is interviewed on 2 separate occasions. And this is what she describes happening to her on that awful, awful night. On August 8th, she started out the day over at her ex-sister-in-law's house. Her ex-sister-in-law's name was Patty, and Patty was also her best friend. Around 2 o'clock that day, they went to a park, and they started drinking beer. And also, what she referred to as a cue. Do you know what a cue is?
No, I don't.
You don't seem like the type that would know what a cue is. It's a big 32-ounce beer.
Oh.
After she had some of the 6-pack, apparently the majority of the 6-pack, she had Patty drop her off at a bar called Clem's. And this is about 6 o'clock. At Clem's, according to Maureen, she had 1 beer. She was there for about 2 hours, and she got asked to leave because there were some guys playing pool, and Maureen was just joking around with the guys, and they didn't like it, and so she got asked to leave. After she left Clem's, and this is about 8:15, she decided to walk home. It's a 3-mile walk at night by herself. She accidentally walked the wrong direction.
She was taking the scenic route.
Took the scenic route. Yes, she just took the scenic route. Obviously, alcohol had to come into play with that, but Maureen kind of minimized the alcohol factor. She described herself as being a drunk. She did state that some people would consider her an alcoholic. She stated she's never passed out before. And yeah, she might have got discombobulated, but she wasn't completely shit-faced. She walked a whole mile the wrong direction.
Oh, man.
That's a very long time, a whole mile, to go the wrong way.
Absolutely.
Home. It's not like you're driving either. You know what I
No.
mean? Where you could drive a mile and it's quick. It's a walk. She goes to the intersection of what is called 11 Mile and Mound Road. For those that do not know Mound Road is 6 lanes of traffic.
Yeah, it's a very busy road.
It's a very busy road. The side of the road she was walking on would have a minimum of 3 lanes of traffic. I can't even imagine stopping on Mound Road to snatch somebody.
Yeah, seriously.
As she's walking, according to Maureen, a white or gray van stops. 2 men get out. They grab her, and they put her in the van. These men were Jeff and Mike, or Jeff and Jim, depending on which interview with the police we're referring to. She gets confused. She knows it's Jeff.
I was going to say, Jeff's her boyfriend.
But now it could be a man named Michael Christini or Jim Christini, their brothers. She switches them back and forth.
Are they twins?
No.
Okay.
No. She says after she got thrown in the van by Jeff, and then her final conclusion is Mike, Jeff beats her with his fists. Then he rapes her vaginally and anally.
Yeah.
Then Jim allegedly rapes her vaginally and anally. And then Mike rapes her vaginally. So 3 men, they gang raped her.
Yikes.
Why there was a driver. The next thing that she remembers is waking up in the hospital. A preliminary examination took place a couple weeks later. And for those that don't know what a preliminary examination is, it is where the court determines if there's enough evidence to proceed at trial. At the preliminary exam, there are 3 defendants there: Jeff, Jim, and Mike. Maureen was asked at court to make a definitive answer about Jim or Mike. The question is which one grabbed her, due to her conflicting police reports. She pointed over to Jim and Mike and said, "Those are the ones that grabbed me." Jim or Mike, I'm not sure which one it was. I guess it's Mike. Multiple times she pointed to Jim and stated that he was Mike. In the end, the prosecutor had to tell her which one was Mike.
Oh, man.
The defense attorney pointed to Jim and asked Maureen, "Is this the guy that kidnapped you?" And Maureen finally said, "I don't know." The part that's extra weird about this is that Maureen knew Mike well enough where he stayed with her overnight at her house.
But then she can't identify him on the stand?
That's what's really weird. Another really interesting point is it came out in the preliminary examination that Jeff had a broken leg at the time of the incident.
Are you kidding me?
No, I am not kidding you. He had a crutch. Jim, the other defendant, ran over his leg.
Aw, shit.
Jeff, he even had a lawyer, and there's a lawsuit going on between the two. A police officer at the preliminary hearing testified that the area that Maureen was found in was a high crime area. A lot of crack cocaine was being sold there, and there was a high prostitution rate. When Maureen testified on the stand, she stated that she'd never been to the area before. However, the defense attorney found a police report from a few months previous in which Maureen was outside a bar about a block or 2 away from that area that the incident took place. She was robbed at knife point by a black man who beat her up and tried to steal her money. When she was confronted with this on the stand, she said, "Well, I don't see the relevancy of this to what's going on today."
'Cause you just lied. Did she suffer any long-term effects from having a head injury?
They never said that she had anything like that. The preliminary exam, again, this is just to see if there's enough evidence to go forward, ended, and the judge determined there was not enough evidence for Jim to go forward. The trial took place April 30th of 1991. Mike and Jeff were tried together. Maureen testified on the stand. She said that Jeff would say to her, "I'm going to kill you, bitch. We're going to get back together the easy way or the hard way, whichever you want. You don't have the right to live without me any longer." She said she did take the threats very seriously, but that did not stop her from going over and having sex with him.
I got nothing to say to that.
Maybe it makes it more exciting.
Yeah.
I don't know. When Maureen took the stand, and now again, this is at the trial, she said something about having tire tracks in her legs, which is the first time I've ever heard that. She also testified under oath that she'd never had crack cocaine, never had regular cocaine. She described the van in a little more detail. She said first and foremost, she'd never been in the van before or seen the van. It had no seats. It had a rug on the floor. A big issue at the trial was trying to get the person that called 911 to testify. The person that called 911 was named Tracy Marshall. And this is where you can totally tell this is 1991, Tanya. Tracy Marshall was described as, quote, a transvestite, a she-male.
This was in the court transcript?
Yes.
We have come a long way.
We have come a long way. They were not able to produce Tracy for the trial. So the issue at the trial was, could Tracy's statement that she made to the police be put in as evidence in place of Tracy? So the prosecution stated, quote, we have this particular witness. It's someone who lives an entirely different lifestyle. We have a Tracy Marshall who is obviously a transvestite living in a house with another transvestite. And this kind of person, I suggest, does not do the things that normal other people do, such as notify the post office when you move and so forth and so on.
Are you kidding me?
The judge said credibility is going to be important, especially with this particular witness and this particular witness's lifestyle. We have determined this witness is a transvestite, and that may have some bearing on the statement, end quote.
So because of that, he's not a credible witness.
Yes. The judge decided not to allow the statement in. The prosecutor at the trial called a forensic dentist.
Oh, that's
the
right.
stand.
She was bitten.
She was bitten.
That's right.
4 times. 3 of the bite marks they were able to get impressions of. The doctor/dentist testified that the bite mark located on Maureen's neck was a 2.1 billion chance that it was Jeff's. The 2 other bite marks that were clear enough to analyze were located on the breast and the forearm. He testified that there was a 2 million chance that those were Mike's bite marks. And he said that bite marks are like fingerprints. They're unique to each person.
That was one of the things that they got Ted Bundy on.
I know. Well, spoiler alert, you can't go and say the odds anymore. And they are not the same as fingerprints, not even close. As a matter of fact, you can look in forensic dentistry books, and this case will be there. The defense attorney hired their own forensic dentist, and this respected person stated it was completely and utterly impossible for the bite marks to match either Jeff or Mike. He said no matter what he did to try to get them to match, to line up, as soon as he could get one tooth to line up, the rest wouldn't. To rebut this, the prosecutor brought a second forensic dentist besides the first one I told you about that said it was like 2 billion odds. And the second forensic dentist worked with the first forensic dentist they had on the stand. And that person backed up the first doctor's forensic dentistry testimony. On that note, Tanya, it could be time for a shameless plug. Okay, everybody, we're back.
We're back.
We're washing the shame away. The defense attorneys called the bartender from Clem's bar. He testified that Maureen was there and had 4 to 6 beers, not one.
Not the one she said she had.
The bartender said that there was a pool league. These guys were playing pool, and Maureen was harassing them. She was repeatedly asked to leave. She refused to leave. So eventually he just grabbed her beer, and without any beer, she was like, fuck, I'm going to leave. A waitress that was working there stated that she saw Maureen, quote, acting sleazy, end quote, and that she was hitting on the men playing pool.
These guys are involved in their pool league. They don't want anything having to do with Maureen.
And I'm not trying to slut shame the victim. There's probably somebody out there that was looking for something just like that night, but I'm saying these pool guys weren't. Next, the defense called a man named Ken to the stand. He lived with Jeff, and Ken described what happened on the day of the incident. He spent the whole time with Jeff. During the time of Maureen's assault, Ken and Jeff saw Gary's mom, Tammy, Jackie, Paul and Jackie's kids, Mike B., not the defendant, Mike, a different Mike, and the neighbor, Eddie. That's a lot of people. all when the incident was supposed to take place. Jackie, Tammy, Paul, and that one guy's mom all took the stand and confirmed everything that Ken said. They had all been with Jeff at the time the incident allegedly took place. The neighbor that came over and played video games on the night of the incident, his name was Eddie, and he was 15 years old. When Eddie found out that Jeff got arrested, he called the police and he spoke to Detective Ingalls. Detective Ingalls told him, if you lied to me, you're going to do a life sentence just like Jeff is. You know, Eddie said, I'm talking. I was with this man. He couldn't have done it. So Eddie took the stand. All of them testified on behalf of Jeff. But remember, this is a trial for Jeff and Mike. So Mike's defense attorney called some witnesses. He called, and don't get confused, he called a man named Edward, not to be confused with Little Eddie.
Okay.
Edward was the owner of Eddie's Pizzeria, not Little Eddie's Pizzeria. Eddie's Pizzeria is where Mike worked. On the day of the incident, Mike worked from 11 o'clock until 2 in the morning. The time card of Mike's said that he stopped working at 1:58 a.m., and that had to be initialed by the manager. The manager's name was Brian. Brian took the stand. He said, I was with Mike the whole time. Mike was our only delivery guy, and we had 43 pizza orders. And they provided the pizza orders with the times that show that he worked the entire time. Mike. He also took and drove Brian home after work at 2, along with another pizzeria worker, Kathy. Kathy came in at 5:30. Mike was there. She left at 2 with Mike and Brian. Brian and Mike took Kathy home, and then they both went home.
So they're trying to say he did all this in the middle of delivering pizzas?
Well, they don't really
they don't
elaborate. They don't really elaborate on that whole part. I don't know. You tell me. Mike's girlfriend got on the stand, and she testified that Mike was home about 3 o'clock. There's 11 alibi witnesses. And some of them don't know Jeff.
True,
and some of them don't know Mike. All of them say they weren't together that night. The prosecutor stated that he thought all those stories matched a little too much, and that it was, quote, almost as if it was rehearsed. The defense attorney said, okay, they all said the same thing, but you're saying it sounds rehearsed. Now, if they hadn't all said the same thing, you would have said, look at the inconsistencies.
Exactly.
He's like, we were damned either way. Detective Ingalls was called to the stand, and he was asked if they'd ever connected the van with any of the suspects. He had no idea where the van came from. The defense called someone named T. Warren. T. Warren was a neighbor across the street from the quote-unquote transvestite house. T. Warren stated that around 2 o'clock, she saw lots of cars, about 6 actually, a black truck, and a van. She saw 2 white males, and then she saw 4 black males. One of the black men, she even knew his name, Tippy. He was the transvestite neighbor. Another was a transvestite she recognized and saw a lot, but didn't know the transvestite's name. And again, I'm saying transvestite because that is what is here. I know they are transgendered, but I'm going by what the transcript says. She described the van, and she even gave the name of the driver of the van. His name was Flexus.
Flexus.
Like flexus the muscles.
Okay.
She said she's seen the van at least 7 times before in the neighborhood. And she said unequivocally the 2 Caucasian males she saw were not Jeff or Mike.
Oh.
She described one of the Caucasian males as having glasses on, a mustache, a straw hat, and a vest. I feel like if Jeff and Mike were wearing straw hats, someone would have been like,
what the hell?
What the hell? They wear straw hats.
Yeah.
She described that the house Maureen's body was in front of in the road as a house that girls regularly come in and out of. So she would see about 10 of the same girls going in and out of the house. So
is she trying to imply maybe it's a drug house?
Yes.
Okay.
She said she'd seen Maureen at that house so many times in the months preceding the incident. She saw Maureen walking without shoes on at least 5 times. She saw Maureen walking with a little boy. He was about 5 years old. She described the little boy. The little boy's description matched Maureen's little 5-year-old son. She saw a yellow Pinto drop her off, that the driver of the yellow Pinto would hit her sometimes. She saw Maureen in the van multiple times, at least every other day.
Is this lady, like, camped out? This is like a TV show for her.
Well, it's the summers, though. So remember,
that's true.
Some people do go outside in the summer.
That's true.
Maybe not you.
No, I don't go outside. It's too hot.
It's too hot.
In August? It's way too hot to go outside.
Tanya.
So did Jeff have a yellow Pinto?
No.
Oh.
No, they never followed up on who had the yellow Pinto. She said that near the area was Harper's Bar, which is the bar where a black man put a knife to Maureen's throat earlier that year. That was only a couple blocks away, and she would see Maureen often walk towards that bar. So this is the part that really gets me. Originally, T. Warren was supposed to be a witness for the prosecution. But when she got to court and actually spoke to the prosecution, they were like, bye-bye, see ya, we don't need you. And as she was leaving court, she spoke with Jeff's mom on the way out and told Jeff's mom what she knew. And then Jeff's mom was like, whoa, hold up, you're not going anywhere. Can you talk to my son's attorney? And then T. Warren spoke to Jeff's attorney, and he was like, hey, you're not going anywhere. We need your testimony. And that's the only reason she testified and told everything that she saw. For their next witness, the defense wanted to call a man named Mr. Bocci. Mr. Bocci was going to testify that he had done cocaine with Maureen many times, but the judge would not allow it. She said it was too prejudicial. In the closing argument, the defense said something. 1991. He said something, I'm going to quote it. Quote, this is an area, and that specific household is one where several transvestites live. Transvestites, deviant background, strange behavior. This is where she's found with these deviant type injuries, end quote. Because transvestites must ram objects,
whatever,
as large as possible into the rectum of someone.
Unbelievable.
Both sides rested their case, and the jury deliberated for about 12 hours, and they came back with a verdict. They found Jeff guilty of all counts. They found Michael guilty of all counts, and a sentencing hearing was scheduled. After the court reached its verdict, it ordered Macomb County and the Warren Police Department to preserve all evidence in the case for future appeals. At the sentencing hearing, the judge took everything into consideration. He did not want to give Jeff and Mike life. Do you want to know why?
Why?
Because if someone in Michigan at the time in 1991 got life, they were up for review every 10 years.
Oh, really? So you could get out on parole?
Yeah. But if they got something like 60 to 90 years, which is what the judge sentenced Jeff, he had to serve the 60 years. And
before he could be eligible.
Before he could be eligible. And she said he'll be 81.
Wow.
Michael got 50 to 75 years. At the sentencing, Jeff stated he felt bad for Maureen. He didn't do it. And then he said, quote, I know now what it feels like to be railroaded. Jeff was really lucky because he had family that loved him. They hired a private investigator. The private investigator sent a polygraph specialist to the prison. Jeff was given a polygraph, and he passed. The witnesses, Jackie and Ken, they were given polygraphs, and they passed.
Should I tell you the tip about how you can pass a polygraph?
What?
That you just have to flex your sphincter? Supposedly. I mean, I don't know if it's true. I've never tried it, but...
I'm not going to test that theory. It seems like that...
I don't know. I don't know how that would affect it, but
I'm calling bullshit.
If I'm ever given a polygraph and I'm guilty of something, I'm going to totally be doing it.
Flexing
Just
away.
letting everybody know.
Oh, God. Oh, I can't breathe. Okay. The private investigator found a witness named Jerry. Jerry had some interesting things to tell the private investigator. He told him that he had spoken to Detective Ingalls right after the crime, and this is what he told Detective Ingalls. He said he saw 4 African-American men surrounding Maureen. One kicked her. They were in a light-colored van. A few days later, he heard 2 of them bragging about the crime, and he even told the detective their names. Detective Ingalls, quote, just acted like I was saying nothing, end quote. Detective Ingalls never even put it in his police report and never contacted Jerry again. Detective Ingalls denies this. Remember I told you that the prosecution had 2 forensic dentists testify?
Yes.
The private investigator approached the second one, and I'm not going to say her name because I don't want to ruin anybody's careers, and talked to her about Jeff's case. She stated originally she couldn't make a match of the bite mark, but the first dentist who testified in forensic dentistry convinced her it was a match, and he told her that he had spoken to a very respected specialist who reviewed the bite marks, and they all confirmed, he said, that it was a match. Because she was under the belief that 2 respected specialists believed they were a match, she felt confident enough that it must be a match, and that's why she testified. She now wanted to recant her testimony.
Girl. Shouldn't have even testified in the beginning to it. If you didn't come to that conclusion yourself, she should have never testified.
The private investigator found out that Warren Police Department destroyed all the evidence in this case. Let's just say no matter what Jeff's attorneys did, they were never able to find out who, but someone sent a memo saying to destroy this evidence. Jeff's appeals attorneys filed a motion to set aside his verdict based on the fact that Detective Ingalls never notified the defense about Jerry, the witness's statements, that he saw other men there kicking her and stuff. If you're a detective, you're a police officer, you're a prosecutor, and you've got what's called exculpatory evidence, which means evidence that could show that the defendant is perhaps not guilty, you have to give it to the defendant. Based on that, and based on the recanting of the forensic dentist, they filed a motion with the Michigan Supreme Court. On May 15th of 2002, the Michigan Supreme Court reversed Jeff's conviction and sent it down to the circuit court for a new trial. A second trial happened. Now this is just going to be my summary. It ends up that Colleen had multiple arrests for cocaine. Also prostitution.
Oh.
A man named Michael Scott stated that he was a John of Maureen's. He paid Maureen to have sex with him frequently. He said he purchased crack with her, and he even purchased crack at that house that her body was found laying in front of. When he pulled up to that house, Maureen freaked out. She tried to hide in the car and said, "They scare me, I owe them money for drugs."
When a witness, like they're admitting to a crime, it really carries a lot of weight with the court because people don't usually admit to crimes they commit.
He admitted he hired prostitutes.
Mm-hmm. And smoke crack.
Then Jerry Burroughs testified, and I told you about how he said he even knows the name of 2 of the people that were bragging about what they did to Maureen later on and that they kicked her. Then, you know how we have little Eddie, who's 15. Then we have Edward, who owns the pizzeria. We have another Ed. It's a different Ed. This Edward worked at the Coney Island near the scene of the crime. He recognized Maureen as a prostitute that frequented the Coney Island. She would come in and she would wash her mouth out to get rid of the semen from oral sex.
What?
At the Coney Island.
At the Coney Island?
He saw her. He testified
What?
that.
Where is she doing this?
At the Coney Island near where she was found. She would come in and wash her mouth out.
Was she in the bathroom doing this?
I don't know.
At a table?
I don't know know how he knows.
How did he know she was doing this?
I don't know.
Okay.
A woman named Gloria stated that she'd seen Maureen prostitute herself. A man named David said he's seen Maureen prostitute herself, all in that same area. Since the original trial, Maureen herself had been picked up on drugs, prostitution too. The second trial for Jeff lasted 6 weeks. The jury came back after 2 hours and found him not guilty. So you asked about Michael.
Yes, I did.
Where's Michael?
Where's Michael
He's
in all
the
this?
sidecar.
Yeah.
Macomb County Judge Servito, set aside Michael's verdict because the same evidence was used to convict him as it was Jeff, and the prosecutor decided to retry him. He was tried in April of 2004, so he spent a whole additional year in prison, and after 1 hour, the jury came back not guilty. Jeff spent 12 years in jail, and Mike spent 13.
That's really sad.
It's very sad. Jeff filed a wrongful conviction lawsuit. There were lawsuits everywhere. He sued everybody and anybody. The city of Warren had to pay Jeff $2.8 million, and that is the boss of Detective Ingalls. The county of Macomb had to pay him $150,000, and the first dentist that testified against him paid him $50,000.
Wow.
Mike, he settled for $1.5 million. Maureen died at the age of 46 in 2014. Can I just give you my opinion as to what happened?
Let's chat.
Okay. She got fucked up at Clem's bar. She walked to go get some crack. That's my guess. Somehow or another, stumbled upon those drug dealers. Probably not till later in the night because her injuries were so severe that she would have eventually bled to death.
Oh.
They beat her up and they
Understatement.
sodomized her and then threw her out. She was probably afraid for her life.
Yeah, I would imagine.
She's in the hospital. Her family's whispering in her ear, Jeff. She knows she can't go and say it's those drug dealers.
Right, because they'll just kill her.
They'll kill her. But that's my theory.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Think? Question mark?
You started out so happy when we got here.
Because this is just bad for everyone. I mean, I feel terrible for Maureen.
Yeah.
And nobody deserves that.
No. Mm-mm.
And
she doesn't.
I can understand why she lied. But 2 innocent people spent over a decade in prison for something they didn't do.
So where can people find us?
People can find us
On
our website, tntcrimes.com.
And you can also subscribe to us or follow us on our podcast because following us will let you know when we have new releases. All right.
All right.
Have a great week and thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.